It's that time of year again with NFL season rolling around. We have to remember why our stadium is empty. It comes down to the death of an owner, the inheritance tax our kids couldn't pay, and most importantly, the man who cheated St. Louis out of football. In case you forgot why, let me tell you why Stan Kroenke is the most hated man in St. Louis, and how he defrauded the people that live here out of tens of millions of dollars. First, we have to mention Georgia Frontier. She was the owner of the Rams in LA, and she moved them to St. Louis in 1995. St. Louis was her hometown. When the Rams moved to St. Louis, they were still building the stadium, so they had to rush to an agreement to get it done. And they added this ridiculous clause that said it had to be a top 8 stadium in the NFL. Georgia waived this clause, though, when it came up. It didn't bother her at all. She even gave some of her money to help improve the stadium. The Rams became arguably the best team in the NFL at the end of the 90s and early 2000s. They were nicknamed the greatest show on turf, with dazzling offense from Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt. Then in 2008, Georgia Frontier passed away from cancer. Her children inherited the Rams franchise, which was valued at $1 billion. This was a major problem for the kids because they couldn't afford to pay the estate tax or the death tax. They were supposed to pay $400 million in taxes just for inheriting the Rams. They obviously couldn't afford that, so they were forced to sell the team. But they found an owner they were going to sell to named Shahid Khan. They got everything prepared to sell, but at the stroke of midnight, literally the last day he possibly could, this dude with the stupid mustache walks in and stops the deal. You see, Kroenke already owned a minority share in the Rams, so he used his right of first refusal to buy the rest of the franchise. Side note, shortly after, Khan went on to buy the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he gave them crazy upgrades to their stadium. He paid for the biggest scoreboards in the NFL, and a pool, and new premium seats. When Kroenke took over, he said, quote, "I'm going to attempt to do everything I can to keep the Rams in St. Louis. People know I can be trusted." Okay, kind of a weird thing to say when no one thought the team was in danger of relocating. At least he's committing to it, right? Stan, why did you almost immediately buy this huge plot of land in LA after you said that? It was going to be a Walmart supercenter? Okay, I guess that makes sense. He's married to the heiress of the Walmart fortune. Obviously, no deception here. Remember how Georgia Frontier waived that ridiculous clause saying it had to be a top stadium in the NFL? Well, Stan decided to challenge that as soon as he could. And of course, it was found to not be a top 8 stadium in the NFL. This forced the stadium to go on a 1-year lease with the Rams. Then Kroenke claimed to the NFL St. Louis couldn't support 3 major league sports teams. He made his claim based on TPI, which is total personal income for the area. St. Louis at the time had a TPI of $133 billion. And Kroenke claimed that the city needed a $200 billion TPI minimum to support an NFL, MLB, and NHL team. Forbes.com, the mayor and the governor, said this math doesn't really add up or make any sense. Kroenke's claims were inaccurate with tons of misinformation. Compare St. Louis to other 3 sports cities like Pittsburgh. At the time, they had a TPI much less than St. Louis at $118 billion. And they seemed to be supporting a football, baseball, and hockey team just fine, even when their teams historically struggled to make the playoffs. St. Louis's TPI was also comparable to Denver, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, all with at least 3 sports teams. St. Louis was a mid-market team with the 20th largest metro area. Seems pretty good for a 30-team league. Looks like he was just making stuff up to justify himself. The governor of Missouri then met with Kroenke. Kroenke said the current stadium was not up to standard and that we needed a new one. The Missouri governor set plans in motion and had the city draw plans for this beautiful new Riverside Stadium at $1.1 billion. A lot of it would have been funded by taxpayer money. To create these plans, St. Louis had to spend tens of millions of dollars just to draw them up. If you're watching this right now, you were likely defrauded of your tax dollars because Kroenke misled the city. I mean, take a look at this beautiful stadium. It would have been a top stadium in the NFL for sure. So what did Stan do? He rejected the plan. He said, nah, I'm going to build my own stadium where that Walmart was supposed to be in LA, and I'm going to spend 5 times as much of my own money. I understand he wanted to make money off the stadium since he would own it, but the logic is flawed in terms of ethically relocating the team. Hey, St. Louis, I don't think you can afford a team, so I'm going to move it to LA. Oh, Stan, is that because you think LA can afford to pay for the stadium? No, I'm not even going to make him pay for it. I'm going to pay for it myself. Then why not pay for it here? This is why you are the worst, Stan. He saw more potential for money in LA. So greedy. He put in his request to relocate to LA at the same time that 2 other teams were trying to relocate to LA. The Chargers and the Raiders. Here's something stupid. The NFL didn't approve of St. Louis's loan request because it was $100 million over the standard. But then they approved Kroenke for $700 million over the standard. And then they offered the Chargers and the Raiders $100 million just to stay where they were. After the Rams moved to LA, St. Louis sued because, quote, Kroenke and the NFL violated the obligations and standards governing team relocation and failed to meet league relocation rules. It was a breach of contract. The rules said the owners were supposed to keep teams in their location if they could. St. Louis lost an estimated $13 million a year, all from tax on ticket-related sales and property tax. It also lost an unknown tens of millions of dollars on hotels, property tax, all the businesses that moved out because the Rams left. Another shady tactic by Kroenke. In order to get the yes relocation votes, he told the other owners he would take on full financial responsibility for any litigation against the NFL.
Big surprise, he lied again. He backed out of that after the move. In 2021, Kroenke and the other owners settled on the lawsuit and paid $790 million to be split between the city, the county, Missouri, and the lawyers. I wish so badly it would have went to trial like it was supposed to. That would have been really bad for Kroenke. But I'm glad the settlement could be shown as as an example that the move should have never happened in the first place. But here we are today, still no NFL team, but now we're supporting 4 teams instead of 3, since we added Major League Soccer and added the Battlehawks, which are leading the United Football League in attendance every year. Almost like he was wrong about us. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you're from St. Louis, you know exactly what phrase you should drop in the comments. Check back in for more St. Louis content on my page.